Introducing Wondersuite from Bluehost.com, the tool that makes WordPress wonderful for everyone. Website creation is hard. Was hard, but not anymore, thanks to Wondersuite from Bluehost. Answer a few questions about your business and goals, and the Wondersuite tools will automatically lay out your WordPress website or store in minutes. Seriously. From there, you can customize your design, pick your brand colors, and add blocks. No custom theme or coding required. You'll get content suggestions that you can keep or revise. And with Yoast SEO built in, we automatically help you get found in search engines. From step-by-step guidance to suggested plugins to an AI-powered help bot, our built-in tools make...
Looking for something to take your mind off this traffic? How about a true story of instant success? Did you hear about the two friends who went grocery shopping in Ashland City and picked up everything on their list plus $75,000? Or the one where a truck driver made a last-minute stop off Interstate 40 and drove off with a cool million? All their lives changed in an instant, and yours could too. So stop by your local retailer for your chance with instant games from the Tennessee Lottery. Game-changing, life-changing fun. Please play responsibly.
Thank you for taking time out of your day to listen to our podcast. This is iCompete, Building Your Empire with John Hewitt, live from the castle. Hi, I'm Roberta Barrett. I'm John Hewitt's producer. You might be asking, who is John Hewitt? Well, he is the Hewitt in Jackson Hewitt Tax Services. If you want to find out more about John Hewitt and what he's currently doing, go to loyaltybrands.com. That's loyaltybrands.com, or find John T. Hewitt on LinkedIn or Facebook. John Hewitt's made over 1,000 millionaires, and you could be the next one. Here is your host, John Hewitt.
Thank you, Roberta. And today I have a special guest. I tease him and tell him he's the second most experienced guy in franchising, and I'd like to introduce Bob Gappa. Welcome, Bob.
Hi, John. Thank you for inviting me to be on this podcast with you.
Tell the audience a bit about your experience, your extensive experience.
I think my experience started with doing doctoral work in German existential systematic theology, because when you do that, you realize two things: that beliefs shape behaviors, and the best way to shape a behavior is through processes. And part of doing good doctoral work in theology and studying the Catholic Church is you realize that the Catholic Church used area developers, beginning with the Acts of the Apostles, which was really the expansion strategy of the early church, to go out and see where the gospel was accepted. And if it wasn't accepted there, then you, to quote Acts, you shook the dust from your sandals and went on to the next city and backfilled that one later. And so the idea was to get as many churches established as quickly as possible. And then the strategy was to take your most successful leader of that church and turn him into a bishop, which is now an area developer. And so the simplicity of that structure was the Pope could deal with the bishop, who was an area developer who dealt with the customers. And that strategy has been successfully used by you, John, in two of your companies, and it's been used for a couple thousand years by a lot of other organizations, including the Roman Empire. And so it's a very successful strategy. And after I left my work in theology, I went to work for the U.S. Congress of Catholic Bishops, 253 bishops who ran the church in America, and I was the only person who wasn't an ordained priest that was a consultant to them, and I learned a lot about them also. And then the one bishop I worked for in particular said to me as he got older and got dementia that he wanted to help me transfer my consulting skills to the secular world, and he introduced me to a fellow named Joe Batten, who was a very successful company called Batten, Hudson and Swab that consulted to the Fortune 1000 companies. And I got to be the vice president of two of his divisions. And he wrote one book on management called Tough-Minded Management that was in 40 languages. So I was blessed to see how all the principles I learned in the culture around the Catholic Church applied to business. And actually, the two things that had in common was both churches and business needed to acquire and retain very satisfied and loyal parishioners/customers. And then, because I got into an ethical dispute with the COO I reported to, and I did not have a non-compete, I went to Joe Batten and told him I wanted to start my own company. And at that time, I was planning a series. This was 1981. I was planning a series of management seminars and leadership seminars for the year 2000, and we called it Management 2000. So I used that name to start my company in 81. And I've used principles and beliefs and processes and taken it to some 650 companies that we worked with in conjunction with the IFA. And I found that where those beliefs and processes were accepted and principles, people were more successful. And John, I'm really proud to say that you and I have worked together, and one of the things that Tim McGowan did, who worked for us, was to help you to put together your mission statement, Winning Customers for Life. And you and I have worked together. You've been kind enough to invite me in to both of your previous companies and now on the board of Loyalty. And I couldn't tell you how pleased I am with all of my relationships with you.
Well, thank you. It's been a great 30 years over 3 companies, and together we've helped build $1.5 billion worth of companies. So it's been a great journey so far, and this is the 3rd company we work together, and they say 3rd time's the charm. Do you believe that? 3rd time's the charm?
I believe that we can make this company a franchisor of franchisors, and we can do with 100 brands what you've already done with 2 brands.
Exciting. Let's talk.
Yeah, really.
Let's talk about today. I want to talk about attitude and what you look for in employees. And in 1988, I saw an article in the Wall Street Journal about how Wegmans, the grocery chain Wegmans, had in upstate New York, in Rochester and Buffalo, they had a market share of over 60%. And I had been searching my whole career for the secret of success of great businesses. And I had wondered, why is Walmart and Kmart? Why? I mean, what's the difference? Are they more talented? Are they more educated? Are they more experienced? Are they smartest? And I decided that no, they weren't the smartest. You could hire the smartest person. They weren't the most educated. You could hire the most educated. And they weren't most experienced. You could hire the most experienced. So why was Walmart exploding and Kmart failing? And I took 2 of my top people, and we flew to Rochester, New York, and spent a couple hours in a Wegmans. And I think I found the secret. And it's a secret I've known ever since. So I've known this secret for 30 years. And what I saw is, and it came from in my few hours in the store, I remember we went in the back and they had they cooked food for you, and they had smelt. And if you're not from upstate New York, you don't know smelt, but it's a little teeny fish that you catch in a waterfall as they're spawning, breeding, and you eat the whole fish. You deep fry it and you eat the whole fish. And the poor guy there that was a district manager for me in Rochester, he had some, but years later he told me he really hated it. But I was CEO and he had to pretend. So he went on to become very successful in one of the 1,000 millionaires that I've created. But what I learned is that it's the attitude. And I agree wholeheartedly with Tom Watson Sr., the founder, one of the founders of IBM, first CEOs, and he said, give me 100 great engineers or 100 great people with great attitudes, and I'm always going to take the people with great attitudes, because you can teach engineering, but you can't teach attitudes. And you and I have talked numerous times about the fact that it's so difficult to change attitudes. And I'll say this, and I'll ask you, but in my whole career, we're having thousands of employees and dozens, if not hundreds of them with not good attitudes. I've tried and pulled up my hair and did whatever I could to try to change attitudes. And sometimes I could change their attitude for an hour or a day or a week or a month, but eventually if they were pessimists, if they had a bad attitude, they snapped right back into it. So have you had any success, or do you have any tips for those that have a employee or a relationship where the person has a bad attitude? Got any tips for us?
I do. And what I found out is the key thing behind a person's attitude is their beliefs. And if they have negative beliefs about humanity or about their work or about their job or about the customers or about their team members, then any issue that comes up, they're going to have a bad attitude about. And so to me, the formation of attitudes, if you will, or good attitudes, is the beliefs that someone has. And that's why it's important to me to look at companies that do this successfully. And they do, is they give people, like Southwest Airlines does, a certain number of days, say 90, that they look at Southwest looks at them, and Southwest tells them the beliefs that are the foundation of Southwest, and they're saying, if after, let's say, 90 days, you and we agree that you fit, you'll become a full-time team member. If by working with us and living with us for 90 days, we discover and you discover that your beliefs just don't match, we just aren't going to have you be a full-time team member, and you won't want to be one. As a matter of fact, you'll probably leave before 90 days, or we'll probably have a conversation that you're being toxic because you don't have the same beliefs we do. So to me, beliefs alignment is critical in any business that you're in and any strategy you use, company operated or franchise. And if you hire or retain somebody or grant somebody a franchise who has beliefs that aren't yours, it'll end up being counterproductive for everybody. That's a comment I have about that, John.
Well, thank you. I didn't mention yet when I spent about 20 or 25 minutes talking to a person in the Wegmans they were handing out free samples of cereal or free some type of food product, free cheese and crackers or something. And she wasn't busy and the store wasn't busy. It was in the morning, like 10, 11 o'clock. And I asked her, I said, do you like it here? She said, love it. How long you been here? 5 years. And I said, does this pay better than the other grocery stores? She said, no. And I said, well, why do you think that Wegmans has such a enthusiastic group of people working for them? And she said, it was eye-opening to me. She said, and you said it more eloquently than she did, but she was right on. She said, what happens when you hire when we hire an employee and they don't fit in, they realize it within 60 days or 90 days or 120 days, they quit and they go away because they just realize they don't fit the culture. In my career, I used to be annoyed when the losers would point out that the winners, they just drank the Kool-Aid. And I always felt insulted by that for most of my career. And then about 5 or 6 years ago, I said, wow, that's true. if you don't drink the Kool-Aid, if you don't follow the system, if you're not enthusiastic and aggressive or understand the system and follow it and don't believe in it, then you can't be successful. Sure, you're right. The winners are all in. They believe it and they're committed to it. And you're out there, Mr. Skeptical, Mr. Pessimist, and that's why you're never going to be successful. You talked about Southwest and the 90-day program. I believe, I'm positive I read about a year or two ago, there's a company, I think it's either Zappos or Apple or Microsoft that has I think it's Zappos, but they have a rule that after some period of time, 6 months or a year, they offer you a bonus to quit. They pay you either $5,000 or $10,000 to quit. And that's how committed they are to only have the right people on board. Have you heard about the company that does that?
It is Zappos. And yes, because if drinking the Kool-Aid, when people say that, it's a negative. A lot of people are, I remember dealing when Pam and I got married and I inherited a 5-year-old that I'm coming around to really loving. And I remember when he was a teenager, I said, Andy, you're like a stallion who's on the top of the mountain looking down at the ranch, and you like what's going on down there because they get fed and they get to run around and they get a nice life, and then they get to go out and play, but they have to come in at night. And I said, the one thing you don't like is the bit in your mouth, that you have to follow their system and do it the way they want to. And so you like many franchisees, like to do it your own way, but then say you belong to the system, and it doesn't work. If people don't follow systems, airplanes don't fly. They crash. If people don't follow systems, people die in the operating room. They don't live. If people don't follow systems, customers don't want to return. And I think that what drinking the Kool-Aid really means is that the company they work for has principles and beliefs and a vision that gives purpose to their life beyond making money for the owner. And I always think that that's one of your geniuses, is that people don't work for you, they work for the vision that you're working for. And that's what makes the Wegmans different. And Amazon, Bezos has this phrase that he wants a company that people can't live without. And so that's the whole goal, is to create a company where you have experiences where nobody wants to go anywhere. I always call that you don't want customers who commit brand adultery. You don't want them doing business anywhere else but with you for what you offer them. So, as Forrest Gump would say, John, that's all I have to say about that.
I love Forrest.
I know.
At an experience I had at Liberty, we have this March retreat where we bring in all the executives in. And it was typically, once we got to 4,000 offices, it was about 35 people. And we invited all the executives. And one year, one of the guys from technology was just really negative, and in the whole public setting, he was negative. So, for example, we had been growing by 300 offices a year, and we asked everyone to go around and say how many offices we were going to grow by, and some people said 275, some said 400, some said 500, 200, and he said 72. And we have been growing by 400. I mean, and then he made comments about the optimistic views that we had. I mean, we were in 12 years, we went to 4,000 offices, top 10 fastest growing ever. And here he's being pessimistic about the future. And so the next year we had a list of who was coming to the retreat, and I left his name off the list, or I told his boss, and his boss said, well, please, he's an important part of the team. He's promised to behave, and I I would love for him to come in. So I said, I won't say who the employee name was, but his supervisor's Charlie Kirkpatrick. I said, Charlie, bring him in, and the three of us will talk, and then I'll decide whether he can come to the meeting or not. So he comes in and with Charlie, and we started out the conversation. I said, do you consider yourself a pessimist or an optimist? And he said, well, neither. I consider myself a realist. And, I was taken a bit aback by that. But I quickly came to my senses and said, well, I want you to think of this, that in 2000, we came back in the United States and I had sold Jackson Hewitt, public company, $500 million, and H&R Block, household name, 900-pound gorilla, Fortune 500 company. And now we had to make a decision. Could we compete with H&R Block and Jackson Hewitt? The two companies were worth $5 billion. They had 15,000 offices, and all we had was 5 people. And could we compete? And we decided that not only could we compete, we could grow by more tax returns than not only either one of them, and more offices, either Block or Jackson. We decided we could grow by faster than both of them combined. Now I said to him, is that reality? I mean, didn't we have to be crazy? No sane person would say we could do that, right? What realist would say that, yes, you can compete against your own name, your own software, your own system. You can compete against H&R Block. You could build 4,000 offices over the next 12 years. Sure, John. Don't you have to walk the tightrope of sanity to think like that?
Well, sanity is oftentimes overrated. It usually means doing what average people do. And no one wins the Olympics by thinking they're going to come in third and thinking that the person who's won the tennis tournament for so many years can't be beaten. You have to believe that the 900-pound gorilla in anything you do is only there temporarily, because that's the truth. They're only there temporarily.
Vince Lombardi said that we never go into a game thinking that we're going to lose. We always have a plan to win, a strategy to win, knowing that we're not always going to win. Right? God doesn't put anyone on earth just to win every time. That would be. I watched the Twilight Zone once where the guy all he wanted to do was win all the time, and he dies and he's up at a dice table, and every time he rolls, he wins. And after about a week of that or a month of that, he's decided he thought he was in heaven, but he wasn't. That's horrible. So you're always going to have to face adversity. But he said, you either win and or you learn something that improves your chances of winning the next time.
The thing that you bring to your companies is a value and an appreciation for process, but that's balanced by constantly looking out at your business chessboard for opportunities and being enthusiastic about embracing an opportunity and changing the process to take advantage of the opportunity, therefore never becoming catatonic in a business sense and being satisfied with where you are. You're never satisfied where you are because it's not where you ever want to be. There's always a gap between where you want to be and where you are. And that's one of the competitive advantages that you bring to anything you do. And the other thing you bring to anything you do is wanting to change lives for the better. And you're always doing that. And the people who are receptive to that are the winners in your companies. The people who aren't are the people that find out that they don't fit anymore because what they were doing is out of date. And those two dynamics that you bring to all the companies, among many others that come out when anybody reads your book, to me, begin to summarize ever so slightly, but begin to summarize what you do personally to build an empire, because you never build it by yourself. As you always say, you have other people working, and you just want to stimulate their work in the right direction. And that's the vision you bring, and that gives purpose to people's lives. And that's the keys that you bring to building an empire that people need to think about emulating.
Yeah, I also say that I'm the laziest guy on the planet, so I don't do any work. I just talk. So I love people, and it's tough to get great employees, and we don't have a long time left, but I'll just kind of finish with this. It's really tough to get great employees, on one of our future podcasts, we'll talk about how do you do that? How do you find employees that act like owners? And I think with our conversations over the past, I certainly believe that out of all the employees I've seen in my career at my companies and other companies, that less than 5% of people act like owners. And that's what you're looking for. And we're going to talk about how to find those kind of people in a future podcast. But
I love that.
What's the difference between an owner? So I'll finish with this. What's the difference between someone that acts like an owner without sharing what we're going to talk about in the future? What's the difference between someone that acts like an owner and someone that acts like an employee?
To me, it's owning your accountabilities, owning the numbers that you've committed to achieve. When you own the end result before it occurs, the end result will happen. Quick story, when Andy became a franchisee of First Choice Business Brokers as opposed to being a president of management 2000, I made this observation. I said, Andy, the reason you're doing better in First Choice Business Brokers is you own it. You never really owned being president of management 2000. And he said after a while, yep, you're right.
Yeah, and part of that is being all in. Right.
Absolutely.
You're all in. And I love that poker. I'm a huge chess player and bridge player and poker player. I love it become so famous, but over the last 10 or 15 years, I played in the World Series of Handicap in 1978, back when there's less than 100 people. Now there's like 20,000. So it outgrew me very quickly. But I love the phrase, it's come from poker, that now is universal, all in. And the people, a lot of people want a 9-to-5 job and don't ask me to think about it the rest of the week or the month, or any other time outside 9 to 5. But the people that are bought in act like employees, and they're thinking about it in the shower. They're thinking about it in the car. They're thinking about how to improve the business all the time. And part of what I love to see from my employees that act like owners is getting advice. In every company, to improve Walmart or Microsoft or Amazon or loyalty brands, our staff knows the secrets. They just need to communicate them up. There's so many great ideas in employees, but they just act like employees and don't share them. And I'm always looking for the all-in person.
Yep, I know you are.
So, final words on the attitudes of pessimism, optimism. I'll say one thing, and then you can conclude it, Bob. That I used to be, again, another observation. I've been accused of being cocky my whole life, and again, I used to be kind of insulted by that. But then I realized that and you talked about this earlier in detail. Can you really be successful if you don't have a vision of a great future?
No.
So next time we're going to talk about how to find employees that act like owners, because that secret sauce is incredibly golden. And then we're going to talk, if we have time, we're going to talk. I have a new epiphany that I haven't shared with you yet about the Peter Drucker story of Ulysses S. Grant and Abraham Lincoln, and my understanding. I'll give you a little clue that I didn't realize until just the last week that the Abraham Lincolns are like 1/10 of 1%. You're always dealing with the congressman that confronted Abraham Lincoln, and I didn't realize until last week there are only a fraction of a percent of leaders that can be an Abraham Lincoln.
Absolutely, I love that story, and I love it, and I just can't wait to talk about it. But I'll leave with a quote that my mother gave me when I was really little. She said, "As you grow up, never forget this. Good, better, best. Never let it rest till the good is better and the better is best, and then start over." And she said, "You'll never have any issues."
Awesome way to end. Thanks, Bob, and we'll talk to you again next week, hopefully.
Thank you, John.
Thank you for taking the time to learn about how to build your empire with John Hewitt. Find John on LinkedIn at John T. Hewitt or message John Hewitt on Facebook. This is iCompete, live from the castle, building your empire with John Hewitt. Don't miss new episodes every Monday by subscribing on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, cpnshows.com, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Until next time, this was iCompete, building your empire with John Hewitt.
Looking for something to take your mind off this traffic? How about a true story of instant success? Did you hear about the two friends who went grocery shopping in Ashland City and picked up everything on their list plus $75,000? Or the one where a truck driver made a last-minute stop off Interstate 40 and drove off with a cool $1 million? All their lives changed in an instant, and yours could too. So stop by your local retailer for your chance with instant games from the Tennessee Lottery. Game-changing, life-changing fun. Please play responsibly.
Spoiler alert, a 2-word warning that we're about to ruin the end. But sometimes, spoilers can be worthwhile. And so we designed the Lexus NX to reveal many things, like taking the mystery out of how close you are between parking space lines, or the time you'll arrive at your dinner reservation. Technology designed to remove surprise endings. It's just a better story that way. Click the banner to discover more. Experience amazing at your Lexus dealer.